Welcome to the Becoming Body Smart podcast, where we unlock the secrets of sustainable health and fitness and help you master your health habits. If you're tired of quick fixes, generic blueprints, and chasing short-term results, you're in the right place. It's time to become Body Smart.
So today, I wanted to talk about pain and aging. So aging is a pain. It's no fun, so don't do it. And the way we can avoid aging and pain is a couple of steps. So we got a couple things that we want to hit. I would say the first thing to think about is that pain is fairly normal. It's a normal part of human existence. And we tend to see that we get more of it as we age, more aches and pains accumulate. And I would argue that a lot of that has to do with the fact that we don't lean into the pain and say, oh, I have pain. Why is that? And what can I do to get rid of it actively? We tend to seek passive solutions to it, medications and other things, instead of like, what do I need to do? How do I need to move? How do I get rid of this through my activity and lifestyle? Um, we don't lean into it, and we shy away from pain. We're afraid of the pain. And so we have to be careful with how we address pain. Obviously, pushing through pain can cause even bigger problems sometimes. And so it's not necessarily pushing through pain like, oh, that hurts, but I'm just going to keep going anyway. It's more of addressing pain the right way and saying, how do I make sure that I can do everything that I can still do and keep moving and things like that, even though I have some discomfort. And so we've got kind of three main points of how to do that today that we want to hit. But that first one is like leaning into the pain and not shying away from your life and lifestyle just because you have some pain. And it's really easy to do. I find that even in my own life, even though I'm not old yet, um, that when I have pain, it's easy to want to shy away from doing activities that hurt. And so it's going back to that chart that we showed of like what acceptable levels of pain and how do you judge which pain to avoid and things like that. I think that's the key, is making sure that you're handling your pain and discomfort in the right way, and that you're still doing everything that you can do despite having some pain, so that you can get rid of that pain and you don't have to live with it forever. Age is not a death sentence for having chronic pain. It's not a life sentence, I guess, for having chronic pain. Well, I feel like the more time we give pain in our life, the more it takes over. The more we think about it, the more we check in on our pain, the more pain we tend to have. Versus like leaning into the things that you can still do, I think is a really good tip, a really good piece of advice for making sure that the pain doesn't bother you. You obviously don't want to do things that flare it up, but what is it that I can still do? How active can I still be? Um, that the pain doesn't flare up, or what the activities that I can do so I can be as active as possible while I'm actively treating that pain area, so that we can get rid of it and we don't have to age, we don't have to slow down. As we talked about on the last call, which we forgot to record. I realized at the end I hadn't hit the record button, so I was pretty bummed because I liked that call, where we talked about aging and how age is more of a symptom of inactivity than it is number of years alive. And so we don't have to just take aging and pain as bedfellows. We really can live a pain-free or a mostly pain even as we age, and just work on being active enough that we can eliminate those pain points. Anyway, back
Yeah.
to you, Mark.
So I like that idea of leaning in to the pain, because it can help us figure out what's actually going on, right? What does the pain mean? And we've got the video on that in the course, right? What pain means. But pain is just our body's way of telling us that we need to pay more attention to a certain area, right? Am I moving something? Am I doing something in such a way
Yeah.
that I need to alter something? And so pain is a good thing, right? It's our our body's way of helping us to stay safe. And so when we pay attention to what's going on and kind of lean in, we still try to stay active. One, it helps us figure out maybe what's triggering the pain, and two, it helps us to, like, even when we have pain, it helps us to stay, to kind of keep our baseline there while we're figuring whatever out. So if we can stay active, and find ways to move even while we're in pain, then it's just gonna leave us off so much better in the long run, right? We've talked before about kind of the pain injury cycle, as we have pain and then we stop moving, and so it feels better, and then we lose capacity, right? We lose strength, we lose endurance, we lose all those different things, and then when we get back to
Well,
activity,
and Mark,
oh yeah,
so sorry to interrupt, but I would say often we don't actually feel better when we rest away pain.
that's
It
true.
just doesn't hurt right now because we're not using it, but it often never really resolves the problem. So we reduce in capacity, and that pain is still just hanging out, waiting to hurt again when we go to move again. And that's why we get and develop chronic pain.
Yeah,
Anyway, sorry.
no, I think that's such a good point, because because yeah, like we, we often don't feel better like that, and so just staying as active as we possibly can. Like, let's say our knees bothering us, right? Can we find a way to modify our exercises, or do something else, right? Can I go swimming, or can I do cycling, or can I do something like that that works within the parameters as I work to get back more active and active. Um, so so talked before about how I have hemophilia, and one of the things that happens a lot of times in hemophilia is, you get what are called target joints. So you bleed into certain joints more often over the years, and anyway, you have some it kind of accelerates the aging process of the joint, if you will. And so for me, that's both of my ankles. Um, the way that they treated it for a long time, didn't didn't lend itself for me to having really healthy ankles. But I still find a way to do all the things that I want. And so most mornings I wake up and there's some pain in those ankles, right? Um, and so I could do one of two things with that. One, I could just be like, you know what, I'm not gonna move. Like, this is uncomfortable. But as I start to move, right, as I get active, the pain goes away and I don't really notice it. And I also know what's going on, right? I know the reason for the chronic pain, and it's pretty low level for me. Like, it's not something that's like super bothersome, but it's annoying, right? It's kind of always there in the morning, and other times, right? I've been sitting down for a long time and I get up and walk. Like, there's some discomfort there, but I know that activity actually makes it better, and I found a way that I can still do all the types of exercise even with that, right? I can still lift. I can run. I just modify the way that I run, right? I can still cycle and do some of those different things. And so by leaning into the pain, by kind of understanding like what makes it better, what makes it worse, and what allows me to manage it, it's helped me to live a really healthy life and lifestyle, even with something that's gone on for years, right? And this is something that I'm gonna likely carry with me for the rest of my life, and unless I decide to replace my ankles, which I probably won't. So, um, that's a whole other conversation. But figuring out like what that means for your body and for your lifestyle, um, there's almost always a way, right, to manage that in a way that we can deal with the pain, and still do everything that we want to do.
Exactly. I That's the thing. Even if we do have some chronic pain things from things outside of our control, we still can do and lean into, like we both said, I guess. Um, you can still lean into what you can do and lean into that pain and still like be active and still do as much as you can. And I get that that's a tricky thing once it's kind of built up to where you do have some chronic pain issues and you do have some problems, but that's where it really like benefits us so much to find out what I need to do to resolve those things, as well as what can I still do now and be as active and mobile as possible. so that I'm not continuing to decline in function and activity level. So I think that's one of the biggest things is what can you still do? How do you keep hammering the things that you can still do so that you can preserve as much function and even improve or increase your functional capacity and mobility and all those things. So um, it's often easier to build on something we have strengths in already versus start where our weaknesses are, right? And so if we can build from those things where we're already strong, we're already fit, healthy, active, um, it just gives us that jump start, that advantage. So start with those areas and build from there. um, what was the other? There was one of the other tips I'm blanking on.
Yeah, so just
Um,
what I was gonna say is that like some level
oh,
of
go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, some level of pain, as just as part of life, and as we age is normal, right? Just aches and pains that we get, and I think sometimes
Yeah.
we, it's like, oh man, I am getting older, and now I felt pain, and we kind of magnify what it means, and it's really easy to catastrophize pain, right? Like, oh, this is gonna lead to this, and I knew
Mm-hmm.
someone that did this, and right, we all have a story about something that happened to
Oh,
someone with pain, and so um
big time.
and we've talked about this before, but there's a lot of things that pour into our experience of pain, right? Pain is more than just um a signal from certain areas of our body going to our brain and saying like ding 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 ding. There's so much involved in that, and so our past experiences with pain can affect our pain. The stories that we tell ourselves about what pain means, or other people's experience with pain, how well we've slept, how we're eating, right? Just our mental and emotional state. All of that can kind of raise our perception of pain or lower our perception of pain. And so, kind of understanding that and being able to normalize it, that's just like a part of life, and that doesn't have to mean that it's the end. So, for example, yesterday, right, it was like snowy, gross all day, so I was shoveling some snow, and as I was getting towards the end, like my back was talking to me a little bit. Not bad, but it was like, oh, this is uncomfortable. The story I could tell myself is like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, man, I remember my dad telling me about some of the things that he did back in the day, and now his back hurts chronically, right? And oh my just like those thoughts still come up, and I'm like, oh no, it's fine, right? Like I just haven't been in this position regularly for a while, and it'll be fine. And it was. And so I think that's the thing to understand about pain too, is that like it takes time for our body to adapt. And so when we're doing something new or just something outside of the ordinary, like it's gonna work our body in a different way than we've been used to, right? Like some muscles will be a little bit more sore, or some movements will just be a little bit more uh, provocative. And so just understanding that and be like, okay, if I'm gonna go into a new activity, if it's gonna be something, I want to start skiing, or I want to start hiking, or I want to start doing whatever, like understanding that there's probably going to be some amount of soreness, some amount of discomfort as you're learning that, and that like it doesn't mean the end of the world. It's just like, okay, like, well, what do I need to change, right? Do I need to add in some exercises that focus a little bit more on this area? Do I need to give myself some more time to work into this new thing? And ultimately it'll be okay. And so I think just understanding like takes time for the body to adapt, and understanding timelines can make a big difference. That it's not the end. That our body's just like, hey, this is a new thing. Like, pay attention to me. Maybe we want to figure out how we're going to do this, or how often we're going to do this thing.
Yeah, I think it's just like anything else that we talk about. It's just giving yourself time to allow your body to make those changes, and then the consistency of keeping that effort on so that your body can adapt, can change. And so it is kind of like everything else. I feel sometimes like we're a broken record with that whole message of like it's just load versus capacity, and then being consistent enough to let that take its time and do its work. But that essentially is the idea of just being consistent with what we can do and building from there. And so I guess we're really playing off of that discussion we had on Tuesday. I think that's part of why I wanted to talk about this today, is because I didn't hit the record button. And I'm so frustrated because I thought it was such a great concept that we all need to hear of you know aging is really just a symptom of sedentarism, not necessarily. And pain, honestly, is more of a symptom of being sedentary than it is a symptom of being active. Most of our active pains are temporary; they come and they go. Most of our chronic pain is actually more because of being sedentary and not staying active, and that's what causes that to flare up and really grow and become a bigger problem. And so we we often just give ourselves that excuse that because I'm in this decade of life, I should slow down to this level of activity. And then pain and irritation come along with that because we're not moving our body enough to stay pain free. Think back to a time in your life where you were the healthiest, where you were the most fit, healthy, active, and it was probably a time where you were moving and doing the very most in your life, right? And so that that concept, that key of like, how do I keep being active? How do I keep doing all the things that I want to do? That's what's going to keep you from having chronic debilitating pain too in the long run.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's the take home there today.
Well, so kind of an analogy, but it reminds me of we did a call a long time ago on I think the topic was like keep riding roller coasters or something like that. And so, as when we're kids, um like we love riding roller coasters, right? Like it's so much fun and it's a blast. You can spend all day there. And as an adult, you go on a couple and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is awful. Like I just want to throw up and I just want to go and lay down." And it's not that just something changed in our bodies, it changed in our physiology, in that transition from childhood to adulthood. It's what was the frequency of doing things like that. As kids, you're always running and jumping and rolling and moving your body, right? Like you're taking the swing and going around and then like letting it spin you out or somersaults or whatever, right? You're just doing a lot of things to give input to your vestibular system, and so it learns to deal with that, right? So there's just a lot of room to move within that. And then as we get older, we're just not moving in ways that much. And so when we get on the roller coaster, our body's like, "Whoa, what's going on? Like I'm not used to this. I don't know what's happening." And so it's kind of similar with pain in the way that Cameron talked about. Is it's like our sensitivity increases because the amount of things that we're doing decreases. And so when we do anything outside that small norm, it's much more likely to set off the alarm system, right? Like it's our pain system has become much more sensitive, right? The set point kind of changes. And so as we do more, as we stay more active, as we engage in more and different activities and include high intensity activities in there too, it just broadens the range of our experience and it broadens the inputs that our brain is sampling when it perceives pain, if that makes sense. And so when we stay active, when we stay moving, it's similar to that kind of example of kids and roller coasters. Like we're just giving our body more experiences to say like, oh, okay, this is what life should feel like, and the aches and pains that bump up are just a normal part of life, and that doesn't mean I have to stop moving. um and one other thing, I think this gets scary, especially as we get older, right? Like someone said, "Oh man, I got my MRI back of this," or I got an X-ray of this or whatever, and they said there was X, Y, and Z, and so much of that is just we call it wrinkles on the inside, right? It's not necessarily what we see on imaging is not necessarily correlated with the amount of pain someone experiences, right? Sometimes we can see a completely clear image and people are in pain, and other times an image that looks pretty messy, and people are fine. And so, like a lot of it is just natural parts of the body aging and changing, and again, like the wrinkles on the outside aren't causing you face pain, right? And often
Right.
the wrinkles on the inside are just that as well.
Right. Well, so to that point, statistically speaking, there's just as many people walking around with your same MRI results that have zero pain as there are people that have your same MRI results with pain. So, like, so often they're very misleading. Can it give us some insight into why you have pain? Sometimes, but often it's more of a lack of movement that's causing the pain, or specific movement, or strength in an area, or things like that. that is the reason behind your pain, and not the MRI findings. The MRI findings sometimes can be a result of the lack of inactivity, but in the end, we would treat that area the same way either way, of slowly reintroducing movement, strength, and building up your ability to move strong and quickly over time so that you have full capability in that area again. No matter what the MRI report says, we get it moving again, pain tends to go away, mobility increases, strength increases, and things tend to go back to, quote unquote normal. So that's the idea. Let's just keep moving, and that's the fountain of youth, is just staying active and strong. So there you go. Aging in pain, just keep moving. Just keep swimming, as Dory would say.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to the Becoming Body Smart podcast. If you have questions, thoughts, or want to continue the conversation, reach out to us on our socials or join our community. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us bring you even more valuable content. Remember, sustainable health is a lifelong journey, and we're here to support you every step of the way. Live longer, live stronger, and become body smart.